Life of love. Life of love. With Joy Hilson.
Dear God, Creator, Goddess, Source, thank you for bringing us together today. I appreciate everything that Anne has gone through to bring forth this message. And I ask that my guides, my Akashic team, my angels, please come forward to help us bring forth a message with the clarity and intensity that's needed. I ask Anne's team to join if they're so inclined. We're going to bring forth a message for the highest good, to serve humanity, to soften the hearts which need to soften, and create a soft landing for those who are having maybe some struggles. May we provide insight, curiosity, and kindness that will shine through and just help people on this bumpy road that we're on. With all my heart, I ask for this to happen from the highest good, and I ask for this to be a creation, a co-creation, and a celebration for us to share. And I thank every soul who shares these messages. You are divine and special, and we are one. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we gather each week to bring forth a message of kindness, support, love, humanity, and it looks different every week. It's amazing. We have the same theme, but it shows up in so many ways, and it ties us together with such power and such kindness. And my guest this week is the epitome of this. I mean, I'm in awe of her work, of her spirit, how she says yes. And I'm really excited to introduce Ann Hince to the show. And she's just got this beautiful accent. I know everyone's going to love it. So, Ann's been dedicated to opening up humankind's consciousness, the curiosity. Her book is about bringing back your childhood innocence, which is such a dear topic to me, and tuning into your internal signs and your empowerment, and a beautiful lens that she puts it through is insight. So we're going to pick her brain. And Anne, thank you so much for being on Life of Love. I'm just honored to share this space with you today.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
So I don't know if you want to give a little background. I mean, you've had miraculous things happen to and for you through tuning into your body and just asking what's going on. And I even shared last week, I had a story about it was 2 episodes ago, I had a hurt foot, and I figured out I had been channeling my stress through the side of my foot in an unhealthy way. Instead of being balanced and having 2 feet on the ground, I had this habit of turning my foot, and I was just pushing the stress down, and it hurt. Like I really messed up my foot for a couple of days, but I figured it out. So this isn't a new topic for my show, but you spending so much time and really digging in with your scientific brain and your caring. I mean, you've raised 2 sons, 2 grown sons, and so you've been through it all. Like being a mom puts you through every ring. You jumped through so many rings that I know that your insight's going to be great. But could you share a little bit about the miraculous things that you've discovered with your own health? I mean, stories are so powerful, and yours is an amazing one.
Thanks. Okay, I'll share some of the recent stuff, and then we can go backwards, because I couldn't do what I can do now 20 years ago. I had to go through my path to get to where I am now. But at this point, I can put my awareness inside my body, inside my head, inside my bones, and I can focus with such intensity that I can release adhesions in the bones and in the connective tissue. So I can feel them release, and I can hear them release. They sound like old fabric ripping. And I can feel my bones relax in a way that I hadn't known they weren't relaxed before I got inside, before I opened my subconscious mind enough that I could become conscious of the tension and the pain in there. So that's what I do now, is I release the tension inside of my skull, and it releases in other places as well. I'm just focusing on where the tension is. And so with your foot example, that might not have been where the original tension was. But if that's where your body is calling your attention to it. So that's what I do. I go to the place where I'm called to go, where the pain is the most intense, and I focus on it. I'm giving it the attention it's calling for. And when it's had enough attention, it will release. So for me, it will often be my neck will crack. I'm releasing tension in my atlas and my axis bones, like right in the middle of my skull. Just incredible old tension. It just sounds crazy when it releases. You know, if you've ever been to a chiropractor and you've heard, yeah, the cracks and the funny noises your bones make when it releases. Mm-hmm. I've been to a chiropractor and had that before, and it's like, wow, that released a lot. I have that release happen probably 30, 40, 50 times a day, every day, because I've got so much stored tension inside, because I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin. So my whole body was twisted and torqued, had scoliosis my whole life. So I'm kind of reversing that from the top down, right? Because I'm not sure if that pain that I found in my left cheek, I think it's the beginning of the twist that went all the way down to my foot. I just hadn't been aware of it until I put my awareness inside. So I've shifted my skull bones. I have x-rays that show that my eye sockets have aligned. My jaw has centered. It was way off to the side. And my neck is straighter than it has ever been. And I've grown 3/4 of an inch in my 50s.
3/4 of an inch in your 50s, when most women, like, we're experiencing a decrease in estrogen, and we're
right.
You're growing.
And it's especially our necks. If you look at photos of an older woman and their younger self, it's often the neck that is compressed. And I think it's that burden that we've been carrying all those years. And we think the same thoughts over and over again. And we have the same emotions over and over again. And we just keep everything tense and tight. Whereas this work kind of releases that burden.
So beautiful. What was I going to ask you? Do you have a picture of the way your jaw was?
On my website, I do have the 2 x-rays of the former, and like 8 years prior and then 3 years ago. So yeah, and I'd never looked at them before. I mean, they were just orthodontic photos, but for the second one, I knew at that point that I'd felt things shift. So I knew things were changing. So I actually looked at that one, and I went back and looked at the old one, and then just comparing the two was kind of eye-opening for me at the time.
Well, my son had jaw surgery, and we went to a craniosacral therapist to help, just his body to adapt to what had happened. I have a very limited knowledge, just a few YouTube videos I was watching, but it's the relationship with your jaw to your sacrum and how it's all connected. And we're basically a huge hologram. Like, if one thing's off, the other part of our body is off too. And I never really understood it that way, but we're so connected. So you saying releasing this related to your spine, it's like, what? That doesn't make sense. You, like, in your book, you talk about cognitive dissonance. It's like, since it's something new, you reject it because it's too hard to wrap around, or we want to be affirmed of what we already know. But then sometimes we miss the miracles around us if we're saying, oh, I know this, and it sounds like you've studied a lot of anatomy through your own experiences. You're like, what's going on? And then
Yeah, I have. And when I'm releasing tension, like in my cheekbones, in that part of my skull, I will feel my hips, something in my hips expanding as well. So yeah, I think of it in terms of the phrase as above, so below, because as above in our head, which I believe is what was called, I believe it's the Holy Land, because it's bone, it's land full of holes. It kind of makes total sense to me. But when we release tension there, it releases in our body as well. And it always releases in my neck. Everywhere I release tension in my body, it always also releases in my neck, which I found really interesting when I started doing this.
That's really cool. And did you start like feeling the tension? Like, because sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I was clenching my teeth all night, and I can feel it right now when I touch right here. Did you start by feeling the tension, or just going inside and saying what needs attention? Is it a tactile or totally mental, or both? I'm just really curious.
Totally mental, nothing physical, nothing. touching with my hands at all. But of course, I didn't start here, right? I didn't have this awareness of the tension or even sensations really inside my body until I had worked through all my traumas and all my emotions, which is like totally separate. We think of it totally separately from the physical, but it's not. It's all connected. We're just not aware of it to begin with. So all our traumas, all our emotions that we stored inside have a physical component to them, but we aren't aware of it until we do this work and develop our self-awareness to the level where we can feel the tension inside.
When I think about it, because I've done some sound healing where you take tuning forks and I'll strike the fork and I can go around my body and feel where there's garbage in my aura. It changes, it'll go from it like changes tone, and I'm just holding it. I'm not doing anything but by sweeping through around my body, sweeping through the air. I'm just holding it. It's the same tuning fork, but it changes intensity based on if it's hitting static. So it's sort of like if you can imagine your aura as a bright car when you're a baby. It's bright. It's a gloss, wax on it, and everything's just perfect and glossy. Well, as you drive through your life, you drive through storms and pollution and acid rain, and the body of your car, your aura, contaminated. It gets scratched. It gets, you don't know to wash it, so it just starts to build up. And that's, our bodies are like that. That's sort of a metaphor that made sense to me. It's like if you're not doing anything to clear this past trauma, even prior accidents like injuries, emotional trauma, like things that happen that are held in your subconscious that you can't even remember, then they're still hanging out. They're part of your, and I think that's why psychics have such, psychics can read your aura. They're reading the energy coming off of you. It might not be this like, I believe the angels do talk to us, but also angels are energetic too. Like that's part of, we're all energy and frequency. So I don't mean to go on a tangent, but it's so funny because, when, when I was growing up, it was like, well, don't pay attention to what's not going right. Pay attention to what is going right. Like, suck it up, buttercup, that kind of stuff. So you saying, feel it and sit with it. It's a different thing than most people, try or experience. That whole
Right.
making space for the uncomfort and being okay and sitting with that uncomfort.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite, right? I mean, it's
right.
We're
trained to take a aspirin or ibuprofen, or go to bed, drink a glass of wine, escape, go to a movie. But that's just running. We're just like little scared hens running away.
But once I got my awareness inside my body, that's when I realized, and I can kind of sense inside, so I can sense light versus dark. And the darkness is the tension that's stored inside. So all we have to do is find that tension and release it. And then the light comes flooding back in. So I don't think we have to go to the positive at all. In fact, the positive just comes naturally once we release the negative. So that was kind of a big eye-opener for me because, I wasn't sure whether to believe what other people said about the positive, but then I realized at that point, no, I don't need to believe that. All I need to do is find the negative. And that's when I go inside, I'm just scanning and there's kind of nothing there or there's tension there. So I just go and find the tension. Where's that sensation? Where's that pain? Where's that tension? And I just go and find it and hold my awareness on it. And I'm not trying to do anything to it. I'm not trying to love it. I'm not trying to tell it to disappear. I'm just focusing on it and giving it attention, just allowing it to be felt. And when it's felt enough, when it's had enough attention, it dissipates, it lets go. So that's kind of been my whole story throughout this whole time. So it started with emotions and my traumas, right? They were just memories or words. I would talk through them. I would use the technique that's called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also
we talked about that on Life of Love. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it was so powerful to me. And it was so good at that point on my journey because I didn't have that depth of self-awareness. I wouldn't have been able to say, okay, where do you hold fear in your body? Where do you hold frustration in your body? I couldn't have told you that, but I could have tapped on these points and said, I feel frustration or I'm feeling afraid. And that's the beginning of the opening of the subconscious mind. So
I never had it explained to me that way.
yeah, because memories, right? Memories come back. You talked about some of us not remembering things. I didn't remember much of my childhood at all until I started doing this work, and then it's just opening up. It's letting those big emotions that have been stored as kind of resistance, holding us back from all those memories. You let go of that resistance, and then you have more access to those memories. So the biggest thing that I worked on initially was my mother's death. So I found my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19. It was a big trauma. Of course, I didn't work on it till I was in my late 30s. That's when I realized that it was still affecting me. But I tapped through the memories from that morning of finding her. And then I went back to the beginning and I tapped through it again. And then back to the beginning and tapped through it again. And each time I tapped through it, more of the memories came to mind because I was opening up the subconscious mind. So more details of what happened that day popped into my mind. So I just kept going over and over through the story, over and over again, tapping through the emotions that came up until there was nothing left anymore. It was just a story. No, I had no attachment to it anymore. And that's what I started to do. I realized how powerful it was. And I wrote down every single trauma that I could remember. And sayings, like you said, like stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, or shame on you. All those things I tapped through one each night for weeks and months on end. I don't remember at this point how long it was. But my subconscious mind was opening up. My self-awareness was deepening. My mind was quieting. And I'd never had a quiet mind before. I didn't know what it was. And it felt a little bit like boredom to begin with. But it was so nice.
It's freeing. I've had it at times. I don't have it right now. I even got admonished at my angels group. The angels told my friend, Julie hasn't been clearing her energy field, and I got in trouble because I got out of the habit. And I'm like, here I am. I need to go through the car wash. So I don't know. Just to refresh people, should we go through one, like one that everyone hears? I'm trying to think of one that would be a really good one. That everyone, like every parent says to their kid, and it's sort of a stupid thing to say. Well, we could do shut up or I'll give you something to cry about.
Okay. You want to do EFT? Is that what you're
Yeah.
thinking?
So my thought, I always start like hitting like the karate chop points on the side of my hands.
Yeah. Now I've changed the setup phrase a little bit because I found people had a lot of resistance to saying I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed it to be more neutral. So the first point is, yes, your karate chop point, and you kind of tap on it. You're trying to create an interrupt into the nervous system. So you're not being really gentle, but you're not hurting yourself. So it's kind of in the middle kind of tapping. So you'd say something like, even though my dad used to say, shut up or I'll stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That's my truth in this moment. And it's okay that I remember that. Even though my dad used to say, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That's my truth in this moment. That's what I remember. And it's okay that I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you could say it one more time, but we won't. Here we go. So the next point, the first point, is the crown point on the top of the head. And you shorten what you say here and you just say, my dad used to say, stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next point is the beginning of the eyebrows. My dad used to tell me to stop crying. The next point is bone on the edge of the eye. My dad used to tell me to stop crying or he'd give me something to cry about. The next point is on the upper lip underneath the nose. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. The next point is on the chin. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. The next point is the collarbone point. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. And the last point is underneath the armpit where the bra strap goes across, if you have one.
Yeah. That's the tricky one. And mine gets tender right there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. And then you take a deep breath, you let it out. And that is one round of EFT. So it's
Wow.
very simple. And I think a lot of people don't use it because they don't realize how powerful it is. And a lot of people end up using scripts from other people online, right? They'll go online and they'll find someone else using the words and they'll repeat the words to them. That's not nearly as powerful as using your own words, because it's your own memories, it's your own words, it's your own phrases that are stuck inside of you. Those are the memories and the thoughts that replay in your mind. So that's where the power is. It's finding the negative and it's using your own words and doing it again and again until the attachment has gone, the emotion has gone.
And there's something about these different pressure points that, like you said, it wakes up your nervous system and you're safe. You're in a safe place and you're bringing up something that was negative, but you're calm and you're in control. And I love how you said, and that's okay. That's how I remember it, and that's okay. Because so many times, like, you'll have 5 people who experience the same thing and they have different memories of it. But it doesn't matter if that's really what happened. It's how you remember it, how it's being held in your field.
Absolutely.
So honoring that, and no judgment. It just is. Like, you were able to get through finding your mother face down on the floor without crying about it. You know, that's a huge breakthrough.
Right. So what you were saying just there about it just is, that's what it is. That is the equivalent of me going inside and finding the tension and focusing on it, right? You're just allowing it to be there, right? So if there are tears, if you're feeling really upset about something, you're allowing that. You're allowing whatever thought brought that up. You're allowing whatever feeling you're feeling. The tapping helps release it. Right, that's kind of the equivalent of focusing on it, and yet that's what you're doing. You're kind of focusing. You're saying the words over and over again to bring your focus back to it. So it's doing exactly the same thing as feeling inside and just allowing it, and that's when it releases. Once you fully accept it as it is, without trying to change it, that's when it releases.
It's really, really empowering. It's and it, like you said, simple. But you have to, it's a bravery thing too, to say, I'm just gonna sit here with this and it's gonna be okay. Because we spend so much time running from our subconscious, thinking, well, it's subconscious. Why do I need to look at it? I have all these things right here in my face. Like, I need to do the dishes and I haven't like exercised today, and all these things that we pile on ourselves.
Yeah. And it can be scary to think about going back and looking at all your traumas. But what I realized fairly early on, which I think really helped me, was that all those emotions that we've suppressed inside is just energy. It's just energy that's stuck inside, and it wants to be felt, it wants to be acknowledged, it wants to leave. We just have to find a way to allow it to leave. And when we do, it's gone. And it's really just gone, right? It's actually gone out of our bodies, and it's not there anymore. I had a really good example, like right at the beginning, before I even delved into EFT much. I'd kind of learnt it, and then I wanted to try it out on something. And I had a 17-year-old cat at home at the time, and his kidneys were starting to fail. So I had to give him a daily shot, like an injection of saline solution. And the first time I gave him one, it's like my hand was shaking so badly because I hate injections. And I just didn't want to have to do it. So I thought, okay, well, let me try EFT. Let me try this technique that I've just learned and see what happens. And so I did. I tapped about everything. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And I tapped about all the memories from all the injections I had had over the years, which was many. So all those different aspects I tapped about. And the next day, when I gave him the shot, my hand was totally calm. All that fear that I'd been holding inside the day before had totally disappeared. It had just gone. And so that's when I realized how incredibly powerful it was. And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on that peaceful side with all that fear having left me. So that's really when I started just going for it, because I wanted to change.
Yeah, so maybe it would be starting out, even though I'm sort of freaked out to do this.
Yes.
I'm ready to face my fears. I
Or I'm
accept where
not,
I am.
right? Or I'm not. Maybe I'm not ready
Yeah,
to face
maybe
my
I'm not
fears,
ready.
right?
And so you
Whatever it
just
is.
I'm not ready to face my fears, and that's okay.
Right, it's too scary.
Everybody has fears. I have fears, and it's okay.
Yes, wherever you are right now, right? It's catching that thought and not paying attention to it, right? Because some people might think it's too scary, I'm not going to do it, right? And then they won't do it. But if you say it's too scary, let me try it, right? And just acknowledge the fear
Scary.
and let that go, then it becomes easier to do it.
Good. So just, and if you don't have time, tap on that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have time to do my emotional freeing technique, I just don't have time.
Right. And then the time will start popping up because you've let go of the resistance to having time. Yeah. And you can just do it when you go to the bathroom. You can do it when you stop to the traffic light. There are definitely times you can do it during the day. It just needs to become a habit, right? If you want to do what I did, right, you'd want to just make it a part of you. And it becomes easier once you feel the changes, right? Once my mind started to quiet, that's when I realized the phrases that I had been replaying in my head, like the criticisms of myself and other people, the judgments. I hated being so judgmental. I realized they'd been my dad's. They'd been my dad's thoughts and phrases that I'd taken on as my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice that until I let them go, until they were gone. So changes like that and understandings like that just make the journey so much more fun.
It gives you a chance to pause that tape and create your own tape, your own cassette. And that's why you haven't said it on the show lately, but every day is a chance to live the life of your dreams. And then how do you get there? How do you know what your life should look like? But you can't get there if you're replaying the past subconsciously, this loop. There needs to
Yeah,
be an interruption.
right. And that loop, that what I now know is tension stuck in the connective tissue, right? That I didn't know when I started this journey. It pulls us away from our true path. It pulls us away from our, true self inside. And the force that connective tissue pulls with is 2,000 pounds per square inch. It is a massive force, but we're not aware of it because it's in our subconscious mind. But once you become aware of it, oh my goodness, it is such a huge force. And that force is pulling us away from our true path. So it really behooves us to do this work and to look at our past tension and the emotions that we stored inside and to let them go so we can find our true path.
Right. Do you find that you have more energy for the things you really want to do once your fascia tissue isn't exerting all that force on negativity? Or do you feel like the energy goes somewhere else, or it's just gone and you're clear to do, you just don't have the tension? I'm just curious.
It's definitely freeing. It's like I'm lighter. Not
Okay.
physically, like not weight wise lighter, but I feel lighter. I used to feel really heavy and weighed down for years and years and years. And I don't feel that anymore. It's easy to laugh. For me, it's easy to talk. It used to be hard to talk because I'd actually kind of shut down my talking because my dad used to tease me about my voice and he was always right and I was always wrong. So there was no point having my own opinion. So I just stopped talking. But I've released so much tension in my face that talking's easy now. And yeah, those kind of things.
And such a blessing. I mean, your voice is so soothing and so beautiful, and I'm so glad I highlighted that in the beginning.
Thank you. Also, my neck, right? My neck will move in all sorts of different orientations that it wouldn't before. We often bend our neck at the base, but our neck should bend at the base and at the skull. We should be able to move our whole head around, which gives us different perspectives, right? So it's not just a mental perspective that changes as you're doing this work. It's kind of one and the same, right? The physical perspective changes. You can see all these different orientations that you couldn't before, both mentally and physically.
And I love how you said it's like creating space and also opening up your divinity. And I can't help but not mention your symbol, that your cover of your book has your eyes on it. And honestly, the first time I read about it, I didn't really know what you were talking about. And then I looked again, I was like, oh my gosh. So do you want to tell, well, I think the story will be really great for you to say what you saw between your eyes, and then and what it means. And this symbol has been part of our human history for a long, long time. It's even written on the Egyptian walls. So yeah, I'd love for you to share that you got the affirmation that you were onto something beautiful and divine, and it was on your face. So exciting. I can't wait for you to tell the audience.
Okay, so let me back step a little bit.
Yeah.
So after I'd done a lot of EFT, I realized that I could feel, well, I became aware of my emotions, which I hadn't been aware before. Then I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So where I was holding tension when I was feeling frustrated or sad or whatever. Then I would, instead of using EFT, I would focus on those sensations, doing the same thing, just allowing them to be felt. And I'd done all my traumas at this point. So I did more collective traumas, things like 9/11, the tsunami, those kind of big things that we all had our own personal experience of. So I would lay on the sofa and I would bring these memories to mind, and I would just allow myself to feel them, to release those emotions. And it was kind of during this time frame that I experienced Kundalini energy that happened over multiple months. I don't remember the timeline again. I wish I'd kept a diary. But at the end of that, when the Kundalini kind of faded off, like I think my whole body had released enough tension that it didn't need that energy anymore, I realized I could put my awareness inside my body. And that's when I started, playing with this tension and connective tissue inside. But it was during that period, one day I was brushing my teeth and I noticed a cross had formed between my eyebrows. Now, I'm nothing to look at. I'm pretty ugly and I don't like looking at my face much. But it was really eye-opening to see that. It's like I couldn't believe my eyes, actually. And I went to my computer and I started looking at all these spiritual teachers, thinking I must have just not noticed it on all these other people. So I look closely at all these other people. It's like, no, I can't see it there. But it was eye-opening for me because I realized that it's symbolic, right? It's in so many symbols that we see around the world, that the cross. That's also when I started to realize that the cathedral or church is a three-dimensional skull, because they have the rose window and some of them have a cross and the rose window. And it's got the two eyes, it's got the nose, it's got the bell towers, which are the ears, and it's got the altar, which is the most sacred part inside the cathedral or the skull. And so then I had to work out, okay, what part is that inside our skulls? So anyway, I went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes.
Is it where the pineal gland is, where the altar
I don't
is?
think so. I think it's in front of that. I think it's the sphenoid sinus, which is kind of the equivalent of the heart. There's two chambers. So
Hologram again.
yes, absolutely. Yes, and it's the bone, so it's inside their sinuses, so the air, the breath of life in those two sinuses. That's what I currently believe anyway, which is, so I can sense inside my skull, and it took me a lot of work, but I kind of worked out where I'm sensing from. And I'm sensing from somewhere between my eyes, slightly lower than my eyes, but not as far back as the pineal gland. It's further forward than that. So that's partly how I honed in on that place, but I could also see it in symbology when you look back at angels. The sphenoid bone has two sets of wings, bone wings. So it's there so much.
Much. And it, to me, it was an affirmation that you were on to divinity, to unlocking that part of you that is godlike, that is able to tune in and heal and have insight and have, awareness and love.
it was affirmation to me. It's okay. This is, I know this is the right path, right? It just helped me. You know, the physical changes helped too, right? But this is just another physical change. And it just made me realize, okay, I can see inside. I know that's insight. And this is the third eye point, right? So it's just a external validation that the inner eye is open. And that's all it is. I'm just looking inside, and I'm sensing inside. It's the inner eye.
And to me, that there's nothing more precious than our divinity, and each person is completely perfect. I mean, we like to say, oh, we're not this and we're not that, but that's a myth. We're completely perfect.
Absolutely. It's just underneath our traumas and the programming that we've experienced. But underneath that is, as you said, divinity, our true self. It's all there. It's there in all of us. Some of us just have more stuff to work through to find it than others do.
And that's a bigger challenge. And I do believe God doesn't give us anything bigger than we can handle. I truly believe
Absolutely.
that.
I've realized that on my journey, because when I started, if I had become aware of this pain in my left cheek, when I became aware of it, it was massive. It was overwhelming. I could only focus on it for a second at a time. It was so painful. But it had been there my whole life. I had just never been aware of it before. So at each step, we're just shown the next step, right? How much we can handle. And then there's just another step after that. There's many, many steps.
Yeah. Did you know that you needed your bone, your teeth? You said you grew your teeth roots.
Yeah.
Did you know that you needed to grow them, or did like you go for an exam and they say, hey, you know, you're losing bone in your teeth, or were you able to sense it through your process?
I had years where my lower teeth were loose. My front lower teeth were wiggly. I've had orthodontic work 3 times in my life. I've had really bad teeth from a child. And just all that work, I think, just made them loose. And then I was doing this work. Eventually they weren't loose anymore. And then just seeing those x-rays, you could just see the difference. So yeah, I mean, everything changes when you release that tension, because it's just blocking the energy flow. So as you release it, everything flows more easily, right? Everything starts working better.
And you're a living testament to it. It's just, I want to say it's a miracle, because it's amazing how you trusted and went down the path, and then you're open to see the progress, to talk about it. And, you know, that's a miracle too. I mean, I love how you found peace and solutions, and you're real, because you're not saying things aren't going to come up. Like, things keep coming up. It's a process, it's a routine, it's a ritual, but so worth it and so
It is.
empowering.
It is worth it. It becomes fun after a while. Once you really realize, okay, you're just trying to find this tension that's stored inside, right? So for many years, I didn't watch the news because I had too much stuff to deal with already, right? But once I'd cleared out all my stuff, I said, okay, what's next, right? Where can I find deeper healing? So I would start watching the news again, find what triggered me, right? Find those triggers, feel it, and then allow that energy to release. So that's what I'll do now. It's like, okay, what's next?
And
So
you became this calm example to your friends and the community around you. I remember reading about how your group, your friends started saying, you're so calm, you're so centered, you got it together.
Yes, and I didn't used to be.
So cool. Well, I've just enjoyed this. I know you have a retreat coming up that you're going to share about, and anything else you want to tell. You have a very active YouTube channel. I was on there. It's beautiful and full of knowledge, and your book is great, and your workbook. But yeah, what else would you like to share? And I'll definitely put links in the discussion.
Thanks. I'm very active on Facebook. That's my platform that I use, and I've posted every day this year so far. Hopefully that will continue, but I try and explain things on there in ways that people can hopefully understand. But yes, I do have a new retreat, my first retreat in July of 2025, and it's doing this work on our mothers, right? If we've lost a mother, if a mother has died or passed, it's doing this intense work. It's doing the release work on her death. It's doing the release work on our past experience with our mother or father. Either way will work. And then our fear about going on in life without a mother. So it's this intense work that I did on that particular subject over 4 days. So I think it will be really transformative for people who want to come on that. So that's something fun to look forward to.
Yes, that sounds amazing. That sounds really amazing and so pertinent. There's so many souls choosing to move on right now that I'm sure that'll be really beneficial to a lot of people.
Hopefully.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you so much. I just enjoyed this immensely.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a fun conversation.